The Christmas lights twinkle brightly on a quiet street in Boulder, Colorado, their glow reflecting off the fresh snow. Inside a beautiful home, a family prepares for a festive holiday. Presents are wrapped, a little girl in a sparkly dress practices her pageant smile, and the promise of a magical morning fills the air. But by the next day, that magic turns into a nightmare that will haunt the world for decades. This is the story of JonBenét Ramsey, a 6-year-old beauty queen whose life was brutally taken on Christmas night, 1996, in a case that remains unsolved to this day. Welcome to Global Shadows, where we uncover the darkest crimes against the innocent. Today, we're stepping into one of the most infamous mysteries in true crime history, a story of a little girl, a shattered family, and a search for justice that's left more questions than answers. JonBenét Patricia Ramsey was a bright, talented child, known for her performances in child beauty pageants, her big blue eyes, and her infectious smile. On December 26, 1996, her mother, Patsy Ramsey, found a ransom note demanding $118,000 for JonBenét's safe return, only to discover hours later that her daughter had been murdered in their own basement, strangled and struck on the head. The case gripped the nation. Media swarmed Boulder. Theories pointed fingers at everyone from the Ramseys to an unknown intruder, and the investigation became a textbook example of what can go wrong when police mishandle a crime scene. Nearly 3 decades later, despite DNA evidence, countless suspects, and new technologies, JonBenét's killer has never been found. Her story isn't just a mystery. It's a heartbreaking reminder of the fragility of childhood and the lengths we must go to protect our little ones. As we walk through that fateful night, the flawed investigation and enduring legacy of JonBenét's case, we'll honor her memory and ask what we can learn to keep our children safe. Let's travel back to 1996 Boulder, where a Christmas celebration turned into a tragedy that still echoes today. JonBenét Ramsey was born on August 6, 1990, in Atlanta, Georgia, to John and Patsy Ramsey, a couple who seemed to have it all. John was a successful businessman, the president of Access Graphics, a computer distribution company, with a net worth in the millions. Patsy, a former beauty queen herself, having been crowned Miss West Virginia in 1977, was a devoted mother who poured her energy into her children. JonBenét and her older brother, Burke, who was 9 years old in 1996. The family moved to Boulder, Colorado in 1991, settling into a 7,000-square-foot Tudor-style home on 15th Street, a picture-perfect house in a wealthy neighborhood known for its quiet charm and mountain views. JonBenét, with her blonde hair, bright blue eyes, and radiant smile, was the apple of her parents' eye, a little girl who loved performing, coloring, and play with her friends at High Peaks Elementary School, where she was in kindergarten. But JonBenét was more than just a typical 6-year-old. She was a rising star in the world of child beauty pageants. Patsy, proud of her daughter's charisma, enrolled her in competitions starting at age 4, dressing her in elaborate costumes, from cowgirl outfits to sequin gowns, and teaching her routines that included singing, dancing, and posing. JonBenét thrived on stage, winning titles like Little Miss Colorado and America's Royale Miss, her confidence shining as she twirled and smiled for the judges. Photos from those pageants show a little girl in heavy makeup, her hair teased into curls, a stark contrast to the carefree child she was at home, where she loved her pet cat and begged for ice cream on summer days. The pageants, while a source of joy for JonBenét and Patsy, would later fuel controversy, with some critics arguing they sexualized young girls, potentially attracting dangerous attention. But in 1996, the Ramseys saw them as harmless fun, a way to celebrate their daughter's talents and create memories together. On Christmas Day, the family attended a party at a friend's house, returning home around 9:30 at night. JonBenét, tired from the festivities, fell asleep in the car, wearing her favorite white sweater with a silver star, a gift from the party. John carried her to bed, and the family settled in for what they thought would be a peaceful night, planning to fly to their vacation home in Charlevoix, Michigan, the next morning. They had no idea that their world was about to shatter, that the little girl they tucked in would soon become the center of a tragedy that would captivate the world. How does a night of celebration turn into a parent's worst nightmare? The morning of December 26, 1996, started with a scream that shattered the Ramsey household. At around 5:30 a.m., Patsy Ramsey came downstairs to make coffee, her mind on the family's upcoming trip to Michigan. On the back staircase, she found a 2.5-page ransom note written on paper from her own notepad, demanding $118,000 for JonBenét's safe return, an oddly specific amount that matched John Ramsey's recent Christmas bonus. The note, signed by a small foreign faction calling itself SPDC, warned the Ramseys not to contact the police, threatening to behead JonBenét if they did. It was chillingly detailed, with phrases like, "We are a group of individuals that represent a small foreign faction, and you will withdraw $118,000 from your account. $100,000 will be in $100 bills, and the remaining $18,000 in $20 bills." Patsy, her hands trembling, screamed for John, who rushed downstairs to read the note, his heart sinking with every word. They called 911 at 5:52 a.m., their voices frantic, begging for help. Within minutes, Boulder police arrived at the Ramsey home, but what followed would become a case study in investigative failure. The police initially treated the case as a kidnapping, focusing on a ransom note, but they failed to secure the crime scene properly. Friends and family, including the Ramseys' pastor and neighbors, were allowed into the house, potentially contaminating evidence. Officers conducted a cursory search, but missed a critical detail: a small, broken window in the basement that could have been an entry point. Hours passed with no word from the supposed kidnappers. The phone call promised and the note never came, and tension mounted. Around 1 p.m., Detective Linda Arndt, one of the few officers still at the scene, asked John Ramsey and his friend Fleet White to search the house again. They headed to the basement, a cluttered space filled with Christmas decorations and storage boxes. In a small room known as the wine cellar, John found JonBenét's body, wrapped in a white blanket, her hands bound with cord, a garrote around her neck, and duct tape over her mouth. She'd been struck on the head and strangled, her body cold. She'd been dead for hours. John let out a guttural cry, scooping her up in his arms and carrying her upstairs, a move that, while father's instinct, further compromised the scene. The discovery turned a kidnapping case into a murder investigation, one that would unravel into chaos as the world watched in horror. How could a little girl be taken from her own home on Christmas night, with no clear answers in sight? The Boulder Police Department was woefully unprepared for a case of JonBenét Ramsey's magnitude. With a population of just 100,000 in 1996, Boulder had seen only one murder that year, a domestic dispute, not a high-profile child killing. The initial response was chaotic. Officers failed to seal off the crime scene, allowing friends and family to roam the house, potentially destroying evidence like fingerprints or fibers. The broken basement window, later identified as a possible entry point, wasn't thoroughly examined until days later, and early assumptions that the Ramseys were victims of a kidnapping led police to overlook critical clues. By the time JonBenét's body was found, the scene was so contaminated that forensic evidence was nearly useless. The coroner, John Meyer, arrived hours after the discovery, performing an autopsy that revealed JonBenét had suffered a skull fracture from a blow to the head and had been strangled with a garrote made from a paintbrush found in the basement. There were also signs of possible sexual assault, though inconclusive, adding another layer of horror to the crime. Suspicion quickly turned toward the Ramseys themselves. The ransom note raised red flags. It was unusually long for a kidnapping demand, written on Patsy's own stationery, and forensic analysis later suggested similarities to her handwriting, though results were inconclusive. The amount, $118,000, matching John's bonus, seemed too specific for a random intruder to know. John and Patsy's behavior also drew scrutiny. They hired lawyers and publicists within days, and their first formal police interviews didn't happen until April 1997, for months after murder, fueling public suspicion. Burke, only 9 years old, was interviewed but never considered a serious suspect, despite later theories suggesting he might have accidentally harmed his sister in a fit of rage. The police and the media clashed, with leaks painting the Ramseys as guilty, while the family insisted an intruder was to blame. In 1998, A grand jury voted to indict John and Patsy for child abuse resulting in death, but District Attorney Alex Hunter refused to sign the indictment, citing insufficient evidence. The investigation became a media circus, with tabloids running wild theories, from a pedophile ring to a pageant-obsessed mother gone mad, none supported by solid proof. The Boulder PD's inexperience, combined a lack of coordination with the FBI, left the case in shambles, a textbook example of how not to handle a murder investigation. How could so many mistakes leave a little girl's killer on the loose? The JonBenét Ramsey case spawned countless theories, each more gripping than the last, as the public and investigators tried to make sense of the tragedy. The most prominent theory pointed to the Ramseys themselves. Some believe Patsy, under stress from the pressures of pageants and perfection, might have snapped after JonBenét wet the bed, a common trigger in child abuse cases, accidentally killing her and staging the scene with a ransom note. Others speculated John was involved, perhaps to cover up abuse, though no evidence of prior abuse in the family ever surfaced. A third family theory centered on Burke, suggesting the 9-year-old might have struck JonBenét in a moment of sibling rivalry, with the parents covering it up to protect their only remaining child. A 2016 CBS documentary, The Case of JonBenét Ramsey, leaned heavily into this theory, but the Ramseys sued for defamation, and Burke was officially cleared by DNA evidence in 2008. The intruder theory, favored by the Ramseys and their supporters, gained traction over the years. In 2006, a major breakthrough came when DNA from an unknown male was found on JonBenét's underwear and leggings, a touch DNA sample that didn't match any family member. This led to formal exoneration of the Ramseys by DA Mary Lacey in 2008, who stated publicly that an intruder was likely responsible. Suspects like John Mark Carr, a schoolteacher who falsely confessed in 2006, and Gary Oliva, a local pedophile with a history of child assault, were investigated but never charged. Carr's DNA didn't match, and Oliva's involvement couldn't be proven. The broken basement window, a stun gun mark on JonBenét's body, and a boot print near the scene all pointed to an outsider, but no definitive link was ever found. Other theories range from a disgruntled employee of John's company to a random predator drawn by JonBenét's pageant photos, which were widely circulated in Boulder. Decades later, despite advancements in DNA technology and countless tips, the case remains a puzzle, with each theory raising more questions and answers. Who could commit such a heinous act and disappear without a trace? The Ramsey family became as much a focus of the JonBenét case as the crime itself, their every move dissected by the media and the public. John and Patsy Ramsey, once respected members of Boulder's elite, found themselves vilified as potential murderers, their grief overshadowed by suspicion. The media frenzy was relentless. Tabloids published sensational headlines like, "Beauty Queen's mom did it," while TV shows replayed JonBenét's pageant videos, her glittery performances juxtaposed with crime scene photos in a way that felt exploitative. The Ramseys didn't help their public image. They appeared on CNN just days after the murder, on January 1st, 1997, pleading for help but refusing to speak directly to police without lawyers, a move that many interpreted as guilt. Patsy's polished appearance, even in grief, and John's calm demeanor were criticized as not emotional enough, as if there's a right way to mourn a child. In 2000, the Ramseys published a book, The Death of Innocence, detailing their side of the story, insisting an intruder killed JonBenét and criticizing the Boulder police for botching the investigation. They continue to advocate for their daughter, funding private investigations and pushing for DNA testing, which eventually led to their 2008 exoneration. But the damage was done. The public had largely made up its mind, and the Ramseys lived under a cloud of suspicion. Patsy passed away in 2006 at age 49 from ovarian cancer, never seeing justice for her daughter. John remarried in 2011 and has remained vocal, calling for renewed efforts to solve the case, including a 2023 petition to allow independent DNA testing on evidence. Burke, now in his late 30s, has lived a private life, rarely speaking publicly except for a 2016 appearance on Dry Phil, where he defended his parents and shared his own grief, saying, "I just want people to remember her as a happy little girl." The Ramsey story is a stark reminder of how quickly a family can be torn apart. not just by tragedy, but by the court of public opinion. How do you rebuild when the world refuses to believe in your innocence? JonBenét Ramsey's murder left a lasting impact, not just on her family, but on the world of true crime and child safety. Her case became a cultural phenomenon, inspiring countless books, documentaries, and TV specials, from Perfect Murder, Perfect Town in 2000 to Netflix's 2017 film Casting JonBenét, which explored the public's obsession with a mystery. The rise of true crime as a genre owes much to JonBenét. Her story was one of the first to captivate a global audience, blending the innocence of a child with the darkness of an unsolved murder, a combination that both horrified and fascinated. But this obsession came at a cost. JonBenét's image, often shown in her pageant costumes, became a symbol of lost innocence, overshadowing the little girl who loved to draw, play with her brother, and dream of becoming a pilot. Her case also sparked debates about child beauty pageants, with many arguing they put young girls at risk by sexualizing them, though no direct link to her murder was ever proven. On the legal front, JonBenét's case led to changes in how child murders are investigated. The Boulder Police Department faced intense criticism, prompting training reforms in Colorado and beyond to ensure better crime scene management and interagency cooperation. In 2023, Boulder Police announced they were working with private labs to retest DNA evidence using advanced genetic genealogy techniques, a method that has solved other cold cases like the Golden State Killer. Till date, no new arrests have been made, but John Ramsey remains hopeful, publicly urging authorities to continue the search for his daughter's killer. JonBenét's legacy also lives on through advocacy. Her death inspired initiatives like the JonBenét Ramsey Children's Foundation, founded by the Ramseys to support child safety programs, though it later dissolved. Her story reminds us of the fragility of childhood, the pain of unresolved grief, and the need for justice, even decades later. JonBenét would be in her 30s today, perhaps a mother herself, living a life full of the dreams she never got to chase. Instead, she remains forever 6, a little girl frozen in time, waiting for answers. JonBenét Ramsey's story is a heartbreaking wake-up call for all of us, a reminder that even in the safest neighborhoods, danger can find a way in. Her murder on Christmas night 1996, in the supposed security of her own home, shows us that we can't take our children's safety for granted. Not for a single moment. At Global Shadows, we're here to honor JonBenét by sharing lessons that can help protect the innocence in your life. So let's talk about how you can keep your kids safe and prepared in an unpredictable world. First, always secure your home, no matter how safe your area seems. JonBenét's killer may have entered through a broken basement window, a vulnerability the Ramseys didn't notice. Check your windows, doors, and locks regularly. Make sure they're sturdy, and consider adding security cameras or alarms for extra protection. Teach your children to tell you if they see anything unusual, like a stranger near the house or a window left open. Next, be mindful of the attention your child might attract, even unintentionally. JonBenét's pageant photos were widely shared, possibly drawing the wrong kind of attention. In today's digital age, this risk is even greater. Think twice before posting photos or details about your kids online, and set social media accounts to private to limit who can see them. Finally, trust your instincts and act quickly if something feels off. Patsy Ramsey found a ransom note and called 911, but the investigation's early mistakes cost precious time. If you ever sense danger, don't hesitate. Call for help, and don't let anyone dismiss your concerns, especially when it comes to your child's safety. JonBenét's case also reminds us to advocate for better systems. Support policies that improve police training and resources for child murder cases, so no family has to endure what the Ramseys did. JonBenét, your bright smile lives on in our hearts, and we'll keep fighting for the justice you deserve. If JonBenét's story touched you, support us by subscribing, share, and tell us. How do you keep your children safe in today's world?